The rain had just stopped, but the sky remained heavy, cloaked in thick gray clouds that pressed down on the city like a weight no one could shake off. Puddles gleamed like shattered mirrors on the slick asphalt, and steam curled from manholes like breath rising from the belly of the earth. A black limousine rolled slowly down a cobblestone street lined with boutiques and high-end restaurants, its tires hissing in the damp. Inside, laughter erupted, sharp, arrogant, echoing behind tinted windows. Outside, on the cracked sidewalk, a boy sat alone. His knees were drawn to his chest, arms wrapped tightly around them like a shield from the world. His clothes hung from his thin frame in damp, tattered folds. One sneaker was torn at the toe, the other was missing its laces. His small face was smudged with dirt, but his eyes were something else entirely. Too bright for someone so young, too knowing, too silent. He hadn't spoken all day. Not when a stranger kicked his tin can and told him to get lost. Not when the waitress from the cafe whispered that she'd call social services. Not even when his stomach cramped so tightly it felt like it might devour itself. He just sat, watching, listening, waiting for the city to give him something. Anything. The limousine stopped in front of Le Chateau Noir, one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city, where plates cost more than rent and the wait list stretched for months. A valet rushed forward, opening the car door with a flourish, his breath visible in the cold. From inside emerged a man in a steel gray suit. His shoes gleamed. His hair was perfectly slicked back. Gold cufflinks caught the last trace of daylight. His laughter carried into the street like glass shattering. A group followed behind him, 2 other men in suits, one with a cigar clamped between his teeth, and a woman draped in fur, her heels clicking like metronomes against the pavement. They were drunk on power. You could see it in how they moved, like they owned not just the restaurant, not just the block, but the city itself. The suited man's eyes drifted lazily around the sidewalk, looking for something to entertain him while waiting for the maitre d'. And then he saw the boy. A smirk curled at the corner of his mouth. "Well, look what the storm dragged in," he said, just loud enough for the group to hear. They chuckled, shallow, empty, amused. He stepped toward the boy, slow, theatrical. "Tell me something, kid," he said, voice coated in sarcasm. "You know how to sing?" The boy blinked, said nothing. "Come on," the man prodded. "You're out here anyway. Might as well earn your next meal." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a crumpled $100 bill, waving it like a carrot before a starving mule. "Sing for us. Right here. Right now. One song, and this is yours." A pause. The boy's eyes didn't move. He stared at the man like he was looking through him, like he'd seen men like this before and knew the game. The woman in fur laughed. "He probably doesn't even speak." "Oh, he'll sing," the man said. "Won't you, boy? It's easy. Just open your mouth and do what poor people do best. Perform for the rich." Still silence. Then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, the boy stood up. He was smaller than he seemed, seated, painfully thin, like someone had drawn him in pencil and forgotten to fill him in. He wiped his hands on his shirt, took a step forward, and stood in front of them, no longer curled into himself, but still fragile, still trembling. The man raised his eyebrows, mock impressed. "That's it. Good lad. Now sing." People began to turn their heads. Passers-by slowed. Waiters paused mid-step. The city, always noisy, started to quiet just a little. The boy took a breath, a long one, then closed his eyes. And what followed didn't belong to the street. It didn't belong to the rain or the restaurant or the cruel man in the suit. It belonged to somewhere else, something deeper, older, sacred. His voice rose like mist from the pavement, haunting and pure. It didn't shout. It didn't cry. It simply existed, smooth as silk, fragile as glass. Every note held pain and beauty in equal measure. It wasn't a song you heard. It was a song you felt, a song that curled into the cracks of your chest and stayed there. The man with the cigar slowly took it out of his mouth. The woman with the fur looked away, eyes glistening. And the millionaire? He froze, because something in that voice had struck him like a blade between the ribs. He knew that song, but that wasn't possible. He hadn't heard that melody since. The boy opened his eyes and locked them with the millionaire's. And that's when a memory returned, uninvited, violent, unforgiving. The sound of the boy's voice still lingered in the air, as if it had left fingerprints on the walls, on the sky, on the hearts of everyone who'd been within earshot. The street was still, even the city's natural pulse, sirens in the distance, horns blaring, dogs barking, had faded into a strange, respectful silence. And yet, the man in the steel gray suit was not looking at the boy anymore. He was somewhere else entirely. In his mind, the buildings around him had melted away. The cobblestones dissolved into floorboards. The cold wind transformed into the warm scent of cinnamon and wood polish. And the boy's voice, it wasn't a boy's voice anymore. It was hers. Her voice. He was 10 again, sitting on the dusty floor of a cramped apartment, knees scraped, fingers stained with ink, listening as his older sister sang softly while brushing their mother's hair. The same melody, the same haunting tenderness. She had composed it herself, said it helped her feel alive, said it helped her forget that the fridge was empty, or that the rent was 2 months late, or that their father hadn't come home again. The song was a spell, one that made everything seem survivable for a few short minutes. He hadn't heard it in over 30 years. Not since the fire, not since the screaming, not since. A hand touched his arm. He snapped out of it. The woman in fur was looking at him, confused. "Are you all right?" she asked, tilting her head slightly. He didn't answer. His chest was tight, the kind of tight that didn't come from cold or fear, but from something worse, remembrance. The boy had stopped singing now. He stood motionless, his small chest rising and falling in slow, quiet breaths. He didn't expect applause. He wasn't even looking for approval. He just stared, unreadable, like he knew something no one else did. And the crowd? They began to clap, hesitantly at first. 1, then 2, then a wave. But the man in the suit didn't move. He didn't clap. He didn't breathe. He couldn't, because in the hollow space the song had left behind, a question began to grow. Ugly. Impossible. How did this boy know that melody? No one else in the world knew it. No recordings. No sheet music. Not even their mother. His sister had whispered it to him once. Just once before she vanished. "Sing it back to me one day," she had said, tapping his chest with a finger. "So I know you didn't forget who we are." But he had forgotten. He buried it, along with everything else. Along with her. The boy stepped forward now, reaching for the crumpled $100 bill still clenched in the man's frozen hand. The man didn't stop him, didn't speak, didn't blink. He let go of the bill, fingers trembling, as if handing over something far heavier than paper. His voice, when it came, was barely audible. "Where did you learn that song?" The boy didn't answer. Instead, he tucked the money into his pocket, turned around, and began to walk away. Not rushed, not triumphant, just finished. But something about the way he walked, head high, back straight, even in his threadbare clothes, it clawed at the man's chest. It was a walk he recognized. He took a shaky step forward. "Wait." The boy didn't stop. "Wait," the man said again, louder now. The boy paused, looked back, just enough to meet the man's eyes one more time. And that was when he saw it. The scar. A thin, almost invisible line that ran just beneath the boy's left eye. A perfect match to the one she had. His sister. But that was impossible, wasn't it? He swallowed hard. His world tilted. Was this? No, it couldn't be. But if it was? The boy's silhouette faded into the crowd, swallowed by the blur of pedestrians rushing under umbrellas, neon reflections dancing in the wet pavement. The man stood frozen at the restaurant's entrance, heart pounding against his ribcage like it wanted to break free. His friends looked at him with raised eyebrows, puzzled by his sudden silence. "Let him go," the man with the cigar muttered, half amused. "You gave the kid his money. Don't tell me you're about to chase after some street rat." But the millionaire didn't hear him. His ears were still ringing with the echo of that song, with the ghost of a voice that had died decades ago. He could see his sister's face, soft, kind, with eyes that carried entire galaxies. And for a moment, it was as if time folded in on itself. No, he couldn't just let the boy vanish. "I'll be right back," he said, voice rougher than he intended. "Wait, where are you going?" the woman in fur called, annoyance etched on her perfect red lips. "Our table is ready." He didn't answer. His shoes splashed against the puddled street as he broke into a brisk stride, scanning the crowd for the boy's small frame. The street smelled of rain, gasoline, and roasted chestnuts from a nearby cart. People brushed past him, irritated at the sudden intrusion, but he didn't care. His mind spun in fragments. Could he be related to her? Is this some cruel joke? That song, nobody knows that song. Unless a flash of movement caught his eye. There, by the corner store, the boy's thin figure slipped between two alleys, as silent and quick as smoke. Hey, wait. The man's voice echoed against brick walls, but the boy didn't look back. He bolted, weaving through puddles and trash bags, his small feet tapping against the wet pavement. The alley narrowed, damp with the smell of rust and mold. Broken fire escapes loomed above like crooked skeletons. The boy ducked behind an overturned crate, and for a moment, the man lost sight of him. He reached the end of the alley and stopped, chest heaving. The rain started again, slow drops at first, then faster, colder. His expensive suit soaked through almost instantly. He turned, eyes scanning every shadow. Then he heard it, a soft hum, barely audible, the same melody. The boy was there, hidden behind a dumpster, humming as if the world beyond those notes didn't exist. It was deliberate, taunting almost. The man's throat tightened. Where did you learn that? His voice cracked, betraying the sharpness of desperation. The boy stopped humming. He peeked out from behind the dumpster, his face unreadable. There was a strange confidence in his stare, a quiet defiance that didn't belong to someone so young. Who taught you that song? The man pressed, stepping closer. His tone was no longer mocking. It was pleading. The boy tilted his head, as if measuring the man's sincerity. His lips parted as though he might speak, but no words came out. Instead, he took a step back, and that's when the man saw something, hanging loosely from the boy's neck, half hidden beneath his ragged shirt. A pendant. A silver pendant, dull by time, shaped like a crescent moon. The same pendant his sister used to wear. His stomach lurched. His hands trembled. Where did you get that? He demanded, pointing at the pendant. His voice was sharper now, panicked. The boy's expression darkened. He turned and ran. No, wait. The man sprinted after him, his polished shoes slipping on the slick ground. The boy darted into the labyrinth of the city, quick as a shadow. Left, right, down another alley, past a row of shuttered shops. The chase was on, and with every step, one thought consumed him. If this boy is connected to her, what else have I forgotten? The rain was relentless now, drumming against the rooftops and cascading in sheets down rusted gutters. The boy weaved through the maze of the backstreets like he'd been born there. Like the city itself whispered shortcuts only to him. His small frame vanished behind dumpsters, leapt over broken crates, ducked under hanging wires, never stopping, never looking back. The millionaire followed, panting, soaked to the bone, his perfect appearance unraveling with every step. His coat flapped behind him like a tattered flag. His slick back hair was plastered to his forehead, eyes wide with confusion, dread, and something else he hadn't felt in years, fear. He wasn't afraid of the boy. He was afraid of what the boy represented, of what might crawl back from the grave if he caught him. After several turns and dead ends, the boy suddenly disappeared again. Gone. The man stopped, breath ragged, leaning against a graffiti-covered wall. He was in an alley that looked like a wound in the city, abandoned, forgotten. The flickering light above a rusted door buzzed like an irritated insect. A stray cat hissed and darted into a hole in the wall. He turned in circles, trying to catch his breath and his bearings. Damn it, he whispered. And then, a voice. Calm, clear, unafraid. You shouldn't be here. The man spun. There, behind him, stood a woman, mid-40s, tired eyes, hands in the pockets of a rain-soaked parka. Her presence was firm, immovable, like a stone carved from sorrow. He stared at her. Who are you? She didn't answer. You're scaring him. His heart dropped. You know the boy. I protect him. I'm not here to hurt him. The man said, swallowing hard. I just want to talk. The woman stepped forward slowly. Her eyes studied him like a puzzle. You don't look like someone who comes to this part of town often. I don't. He paused. He sang a song, a very specific one, a song only one person ever knew. My sister. A long silence. I need to know who he is, he continued. I need to know how he knows her song. I need to know where he got that pendant. The woman's eyes flickered, just for a moment, but it was enough. She knew something. The man took a step closer. Please. She looked away, lips pressed in a thin line, debating with herself. Then finally, come with me. He followed her down a narrow passage, deeper into the bones of the city. The sounds of traffic and laughter faded, replaced by dripping pipes, humming electricity, and distant murmurs. They arrived at an old metal door, dented and scarred. She knocked twice, then again. The door creaked open. The boy stood there, dry now, wrapped in a wool blanket, eyes watchful, not surprised. He didn't say anything, just stepped aside. The man entered slowly. The place was small, barely a room. Mattress on the floor, a single lamp, a shelf filled with old books, torn clothes, and a cracked radio. The air smelled like mold and something warm. Cinnamon? His knees nearly buckled. That smell, that exact smell. His sister used to bake cinnamon bread every Sunday, when they could afford it. It had filled their home with warmth, even in the dead of winter. It was her favorite. And then he saw it, on the shelf, a photograph, framed with cheap plastic. The woman in the picture was smiling, arms wrapped around a baby. Her face unmistakable. His sister, alive, younger than he remembered, but her eyes, they were the same. The baby in her arms. He looked back at the boy. It couldn't be, but it was. The woman beside him spoke softly. She died when he was 4. The fire took her, but he survived. The man's world cracked. I was told they both died, he whispered, barely breathing. I never got the call. No one told me. No one could find you. The woman said. You disappeared, changed your name, cut all ties. He turned to her slowly. Who are you? I was her neighbor. I raised him when no one else would. The man turned to the boy again. His nephew, his own blood, living on the streets while he built empires. He took a slow step toward him. I didn't know, he said, voice shaking. If I had, I never would have. But the boy didn't blink, didn't flinch, didn't trust. And rightfully so, because abandonment doesn't always feel like a moment. It feels like a lifetime. The room was far too quiet. The millionaire, no longer a man of confidence, no longer the towering figure who mocked a hungry boy on the sidewalk, stood frozen in the middle of that crumbling shelter, his wet shoes staining the worn floor, his hands trembling by his sides. The boy sat on the mattress now, blanket wrapped around his shoulders like armor. His gaze never left the man's face. He studied him, not like a child looks at a stranger, but like a survivor looks at a ghost. You disappeared, the woman said again, sharper now, as though she needed to repeat it to make it real for both of them. You changed your name, moved to the other side of the country, left your family behind, and by the time your sister needed you most, you were gone. The man turned toward her, his voice breaking. I was trying to survive. I had nothing. I thought they'd be better off without me. You thought wrong. He turned back to the boy. What's your name? The boy didn't answer. The woman stepped in. He goes by Noah. A silence fell heavy after that name, echoing in the man's ears like a heartbeat out of rhythm. Noah, he whispered. She always loved that name. The woman gave a small nod. She named him after the only thing she believed could carry something pure through a storm. The words sank deep into him like rusted nails. I would have helped. I would have raised him, he said, desperate, if I had known. But you didn't know, she snapped, her eyes blazing. Because you made sure no one could find you. His head dropped, shoulders slumping under the weight of guilt decades in the making. I remember her, he whispered. I remember everything now. I try to forget her face, her voice, that song. But it was always there, somewhere. In hotel rooms, on private jets, behind the sound of champagne corks and fake laughter. It followed me. He looked up at Noah. You brought it back, with just one song. Noah finally spoke. His voice was low, hoarse, but steady. She taught me that song, the night before the fire. The man's breath caught. I remember, the boy continued. We didn't have heat. She said music could warm us anyway. She held me and sang that song, over and over. Said it would protect me if anything happened. A pause. It didn't. Those two words sliced deeper than any accusation. The man dropped to his knees, the floor cold against his expensive slacks. He looked up at the boy, not as a millionaire, not as someone powerful, but as a man undone. I can't change the past, he said, voice breaking. But I'm here now, and I want to do right by you. Whatever that takes. Noah said nothing. The woman crossed her arms, her voice firm. You think one night, one song, $100 bill makes up for a lifetime of absence? No, he replied. But it's a start. The boy studied him again. His face was unreadable, but behind the silence, something had shifted. A tension loosened, a small crack in the armor, and just as the moment hung there, fragile, suspended, bang, a loud crash echoed from the hallway outside. All three of them froze. Then came the sound of hurried footsteps, shouting, the unmistakable click of metal. The woman's eyes widened. They found us. Noah's head whipped around. Ooh, the woman pulled him up from the mattress, her hands trembling now. We have to go. The man stood. What's going on? They've been looking for him, she hissed. You think life let this kid sing in the street without someone noticing? He has something they want, something they think he stole. What are you talking about? She didn't answer, because outside the door, someone was already turning the handle. The doorknob turned slowly. Noah's breath caught in his throat. The woman's fingers curled protectively around his shoulders, eyes darting between the entrance and the back window. A small, grimy thing bolted shut and half covered by an old curtain. The man stepped back instinctively, heart pounding, as adrenaline surged through his veins. Bang! Bang! The door shook under the force of two quick blows. Noah! A deep voice boomed from the hallway. You've got something that doesn't belong to you. Open up, and no one gets hurt. Noah's fingers trembled as he reached for the pendant hanging around his neck. The crescent moon, clutching it tightly, as if it could make him invisible. The woman snapped into motion. Window. Now. It's sealed, the man said, pulling at the bolt. It won't budge. She shoved him aside and reached into the drawer of an old side table, pulling out a rusted screwdriver. With surprising strength, she jammed it beneath the latch, twisting and forcing until the wood cracked with a sickening groan. Bang! The door shook again, harder this time. A piece of plaster cracked and rained down from the ceiling. Now, she yelled. The man threw the window open. Rain poured in, cold and sharp as needles. Outside, a narrow fire escape descended into an alley thick with shadows and dripping pipes. Noah didn't hesitate. He scrambled onto the metal frame, slipping slightly on the slick surface. The woman followed, then turned back for just a second, locking eyes with the man. You want to help him? She said. Then don't freeze now. The man blinked, and in that moment, the door exploded open behind him. A figure stepped through the smoke and splinters. Tall, broad, a black leather coat clinging to his frame. Rain glistened off his shaved head. His eyes were small, calculating, reptilian. He held a weapon. The man didn't look long. He dove through the window after them. Down the fire escape they fled, the metal stairs shaking beneath their feet. A shout erupted behind them, then the thunder of boots. He's coming, Noah cried. They hit the pavement running. The alley smelled of wet garbage and burning oil. Steam rose from a grate, obscuring their path. Tires squealed somewhere in the distance. Every step splashed in puddles, every breath a white cloud in the cold night. The man kept pace, heart pounding like a war drum. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about business meetings or stock prices or private jets. He was thinking about them, about survival. They ducked under a fence, crawled through a construction site, and burst out into a quieter street lined with dark windows and shuttered shops. The woman grabbed Noah's hand and pulled him into a dim stairwell. We'll hide here, she whispered. No, the man panted, eyes scanning the street. They'll sweep this area in minutes. We need to get in my car. It's a few blocks from here. The woman hesitated. We can't trust you. I didn't come here to hurt him, he snapped. I can't find him, and now someone else is chasing him with a gun. I have the resources to get him out of this. You don't. She narrowed her eyes, then looked at Noah. The boy nodded once, barely perceptible. All right, she said, but one wrong move and I swear. I know, he interrupted. Now move. They sprinted down the sidewalk, past darkened street lamps and overflowing gutters. Around the corner, the limousine still sat where he'd left it, valet long gone. He fumbled with the keys, hands slick with rain, finally unlocking the door. They dove inside. The door slammed shut. Silence. Breathing. Then, a pounding on the glass. They turned in unison. A second man stood at the window, bald, angry, armed. Not the one from before. Noah's eyes widened. They're not alone. The pounding on the limousine window grew louder, more urgent. The bald man outside wasn't yelling. He was smiling. And somehow, that was worse. His eyes were locked on Noah, cold and calculated, like a butcher examining a rare cut of meat. Inside the car, no one moved. The millionaire reached slowly for the control panel and hit the lock button. Click. All 4 doors sealed. Then he pressed the engine start. The vehicle hummed to life like a sleeping beast, headlights slicing through the rain. But outside, the man didn't flinch. He pulled something from his coat. A pistol. Noah gasped. Down, the woman screamed, yanking him to the floor as the first shot rang out. Crack. And the rear passenger window fractured with a spiderweb of lines, but didn't shatter. Bulletproof. The millionaire slammed the accelerator. The tires screeched on wet asphalt as the limousine lurched forward, throwing them back against their seats. More shots echoed behind them. 2, 3. The rear windshield cracked under the pressure, but held strong. They turned a corner sharply, the car fishtailing before stabilizing. The city lights blurred past. Neon, rain, concrete. The limousine cut through it all like a shark through dark water. Inside, chaos. Who the hell are they? The man shouted, eyes on the road. They've been following us for weeks, the woman replied, holding Noah close. They want what he has. What does he have? He demanded. What could a child possibly? But her silence was louder than any answer. He glanced in the rearview mirror. A black SUV had turned onto the street behind them. Its headlights were off, but it was gaining. I need to know, he shouted. If I'm going to protect him, I have to know what they're after. The woman hesitated. Then, it's the pendant. The millionaire blinked. The necklace. Yes, she said. It's not just jewelry. Your sister, she hid something inside it. Something she was going to use to take them down. Take who down? She looked him dead in the eye. The people who destroyed your family. His hands tightened on the wheel. What's inside it? I don't know, she admitted. She never told me. But she said it was the only proof she had of what they did. That if anything ever happened to her, it would be up to her son to decide what to do with it. Another glance in the mirror. The SUV was closing in. Fast. He cursed under his breath. There's a safe house 2 miles from here. Private property. I can get us inside. You have a safe house? The woman asked, half incredulous. He didn't look at her. I have enemies too. She studied him for a moment. Fine. But after that, you give us a way out. He didn't answer. He just drove. The SUV was so close now, they could see the outline of the man in the passenger seat. Same one from the alley. Leather coat. Reptilian eyes. They were boxed in. The SUV swerved right, trying to ram them from the side. Hold on. The millionaire jerked the wheel, veering sharply into a side street barely wide enough for the limousine. The SUV followed, tires skidding, metal screeching against the brick walls of the narrow passage. They burst out the other side onto an open road, headlights illuminating an old bridge ahead. If we can get across, we'll lose them in the woods, he said, voice low. But even as he spoke, something changed. Noah was holding the pendant in both hands now, staring at it. He twisted the crescent moon, once, twice, and clicked. A hidden compartment opened. Inside, a microchip. The woman gasped. The millionaire swerved again to avoid a pothole, nearly slamming into a street lamp. Noah held up the chip. What is it? He asked. No one answered, because in that moment, all 3 of them knew. This wasn't just about a song. This was something far more dangerous, something people were willing to kill for. The limousine tore across the bridge, tires slicing through puddles as the engine roared beneath them. Wind howled through the narrow lanes, and the city lights behind them faded into a distant blur. Ahead, the world turned darker, wilder. Trees loomed like silent sentinels, shrouded in mist. Inside the car, everything had gone quiet again. Noah sat between the 2 adults, clutching the microchip like a fragile piece of destiny. His fingers trembled, not from the cold, but from something deeper, the weight of something he didn't yet understand, but could feel in his bones. The man stared at the road, jaw clenched. Pull the seats up, he ordered. The woman narrowed her eyes. What? There's a panel behind the middle row. Pull it up. She hesitated, then reached over, tugging at the leather seat. With a low click, a small compartment popped open. Inside, a black box the size of a shoe. She opened it. Flashlights, cash, 2 passports, a satellite phone, a burner laptop. The millionaire's voice was cold. Plug it in. Noah passed her the microchip. The woman inserted it into the laptop's side port with trembling hands. The screen flickered to life. At first, it showed nothing but code. Then a logo, a stylized crest, a name below it, Cavendish Biotech Corporation. The man's face went white. The woman frowned. What is that? He swallowed hard. It's not just a company. It's a shadow organization, buried behind layers of dummy corporations. Pharmaceutical on the surface, something else underneath. Like what? They deal in human experimentation, black budget programs, things not even the government dares touch. The screen shifted, rows of encrypted files. He clicked one. A photograph appeared. A woman, bound to a hospital gurney, eyes swollen, wires protruding from her scalp. The woman gasped. The boy covered his mouth. He scrolled to the next file. Case number 291. Subject, Eleanor D. The millionaire froze. That's her, he whispered. That's my sister. He kept reading. His voice turned hollow. Subject exhibited unstable neurological patterns after exposure to Formula CVX. Filed under failure. Terminated. June 14th. He looked up. They used her. The woman's voice was barely a breath. You think she worked for them? No. I think she escaped from them. And the pendant. It had been her last act of rebellion. Her proof. Her warning. A sudden realization struck him like lightning. She must have taken the chip during her time there. Hid it. Protected Noah. And they've been hunting him ever since. Outside, headlights blazed in the rearview mirror. They're back, Noah whispered. The black SUV was closing in again. They never lost us, the man muttered. They were hurting us. The woman turned to him. We can't outrun them again. No, he said, eyes fixed on the trees ahead. But I know a place they can't reach. He turned off the main road. They drove into the forest. The path was rough, barely visible, but he knew every turn. Branches scraped the sides of the limousine. Leaves slapped against the windshield. Then, at the base of a rocky slope, he stopped. A hidden entrance. Steel, reinforced, blended into the terrain. He typed a code into the panel. Beep, beep, click. The door slid open. Inside. Now, they entered the shelter. Dark, cold, silent. The steel door sealed behind them like a vault. For the first time in hours, the outside world was shut out. Safe for now. But safety was only a pause. Because behind the quiet, something was awakening. Noah stood in the center of the room, the microchip still glowing faintly in his hand. The millionaire turned to him. There's more to this. Something she never told me. Something buried. Noah looked up and whispered, I think I know where. The underground shelter was cold, carved deep into the rock, dimly lit by strips of LED light that buzzed faintly overhead. It looked more like a military bunker than a safe house. Steel walls, reinforced doors, concrete floors. Dust hung in the air, undisturbed for years. The silence inside was heavy, not peaceful, tense, like the quiet between 2 verses of a song whose final note had never been played. Noah stood near an old metal table, staring down at the microchip resting beneath his fingers. His eyes had changed. They weren't just fearful now. They were focused, like a fog had lifted, and behind it, a boy who remembered more than he'd ever said. The woman paced, her boots echoing across the floor. The millionaire stood at a computer console, typing with mechanical intensity as he tried to crack deeper into the chip's encryption. Then, Noah spoke, quietly at first. She used to play the piano when I couldn't sleep. Both adults turned toward him. She said music could say the things she couldn't. That if you really listened, you'd understand everything. His voice trembled, but he didn't stop. One night, I had a fever. She stayed up all night playing one melody, over and over. Said it was for me, but now I think it wasn't. The woman stepped closer. What do you mean? Noah met her eyes. I think it was for him. He looked toward the millionaire. For you. The man's breath caught in his chest. She knew they'd come for her, Noah said. She just didn't know when. So she left something behind. He pulled something else from his backpack. Small, worn, wrapped in cloth. A cassette tape. Faded ink on the label read, Foray. The woman blinked. Is that? Noah nodded. I never listened to it, but I think it's time. The man took a deep breath, reached for an old cassette player resting on a nearby shelf. He kept it for nostalgia, or maybe denial. Either way, it still worked. He placed the tape inside, pressed play, and the room filled with sound. First, the crackle of old recording tape. Then a single note. Soft, measured, piano. A melody emerged, delicate, haunting, heartbreakingly familiar. The song. Their song. The man stumbled backward, leaning against the wall as memories flooded his chest. Laughter. Cinnamon. Firelight. A young girl with wide eyes and a dream too big for the world she lived in. Then, her voice. If you're hearing this, it means I'm gone. The woman gasped. The man froze. Noah closed his eyes. They found me, Adam. I tried to stay hidden, but I couldn't forever. I never blamed you for leaving. I knew you were trying to survive. But I also knew, one day, the world would force you to remember. The music swelled behind her voice, wrapping her words in sorrow. They made me part of something terrible. They lied. They experimented. And when I discovered the truth, I knew I wouldn't live long enough to expose it. So I took what I could, hid it in the pendant. Our moon. The man's throat tightened. This isn't just about me anymore. It's about Noah. If he's with you, protect him. He's the last thing I have. The last thing that matters. Silence. Then the final chord played, soft, incomplete, as if waiting for someone else to finish the song. The tape clicked. Noah opened his eyes. The woman had tears running silently down her cheeks. The man turned away, hiding the storm behind his eyes. She was trying to save us all, the woman whispered. Noah looked at them both. Then we need to finish what she started. The man straightened. We will. He turned to the laptop, fire in his eyes now. We're going to expose them. All of it. Whatever it takes. But before he could touch the keyboard, all the lights went out. Total darkness. Then, a low mechanical click from the entrance. The door was opening. The lights died without warning, plunging the shelter into a thick, suffocating blackness. For a moment, no one breathed. Only the faint hum of the generator cooling down could be heard, echoing like a warning through the metal walls. Then came the sound of the door. A deep clunk, metal unlocking from the outside. The millionaire, Adam, reached instinctively for the emergency flashlight mounted beneath the desk. He flicked it on just as the door began to creak open, flooding the room with a narrow, trembling beam of white light. The woman stood in front of Noah, shielding him. Her hand moved to the back of her belt where a small knife was hidden in a sheath. Adam stepped between them and the door. The entrance groaned open further, and someone stepped in. But it wasn't the bald man. It wasn't the leather-jacketed hunter from the alley. It wasn't anyone they expected. It was Julian, Adam's personal driver, his valet, his most trusted employee, wearing a rain-drenched trench coat, holding a briefcase in one hand and a gun in the other. Julian, Adam said, his voice hollow. What the hell are you doing here? The man smiled, thin and tight. I told you to check your shadows, sir. But you never do. He stepped forward, calm, almost elegant. His coat dripped on the floor. You led me right to him. I knew if I just waited, you'd do what you always do. Try to fix your past with money and guilt. He raised the gun slightly, not yet aiming it, but not far off either. I don't understand, Adam said, his heart pounding. You work for me. I work for them first. Julian's voice lost its polish. I've been in your orbit for years, Adam, making sure you stay busy, distracted, that you never remembered what they did to your sister. The woman's eyes narrowed. So was you. You kept the files buried. He nodded. And I would have kept them buried forever if this damn kid hadn't opened his mouth on the street. You should have let him be humiliated. That was the plan. Noah stood still behind her, breathing hard. You knew the song, Adam whispered. You were there, weren't you, when they took her? I watched them break her, Julian said. She was supposed to vanish quietly, but she didn't. And now here we are. His eyes flicked to the laptop on the table. Give me the chip. Adam stepped in front of it. You'll have to kill me. I was hoping you'd say that, Julian replied coldly. The moment froze. Rain drummed against the door. The power stayed dead. The shadows stretched long across the floor. Then, bang, the shot echoed like thunder. Sparks flew from the flashlight as it tumbled from Adam's hand. Screams. Noah dropped to the floor. Julian stepped forward, but the woman lunged, knife flashing. They struggled, the blade grazing Julian's arm. He grunted, throwing her into the wall. Adam charged him, fists flying, rage replacing fear. They fought in the dark, the flashlight's dying beam spinning wildly across the floor. Another shot. The woman cried out. Noah screamed. Then silence. Julian staggered back, bleeding. He aimed the gun at Noah now, hands shaking. And Noah stood up, straight, still, no fear. His voice was clear, steady. She said you were a coward. Julian hesitated. Noah raised the pendant in the air and smashed it against the wall. The microchip flew from the casing and landed directly in the laptop's port. The screen lit up. Emergency power kicked in, and every single file began uploading to the cloud. Julian's eyes widened. No, but it was too late. The truth was out. The emergency lights flickered to life with a low buzz, casting the bunker in a pale, red glow. The laptop screen pulsed, alive and bright. Lines of code racing upward as the files from the microchip uploaded in real time to every secure outlet Adam had ever built into his empire. Whistleblower servers, cloud drives, encrypted Dropbox, dozens of destinations. Nowhere to stop it now. Julian stared in horror as his world unraveled in seconds. You don't know what you've done, he growled, his voice trembling. He staggered forward, gun in hand, blood running down his arm from the woman's blade. Adam stood in front of the laptop, battered but upright. A bruise bloomed across his cheek, and his lip was split open. But he wasn't moving. You lost, he said, low and steady. It's over. Julian raised the gun again. Then, crash. The woman tackled him from the side with everything she had left, slamming him against the metal shelving. The gun discharged, a wild shot that hit the wall behind them, and then clattered to the floor. She fought like someone who had nothing to lose and everything to protect. Julian elbowed her in the stomach, pushing her away, but Adam was already moving. He grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall and brought it down hard on Julian's shoulder. Thud. The man dropped to his knees, groaning in pain. Adam kicked the gun away. Then finally, it was over. The woman collapsed to the floor beside Noah, who clung to her tightly, his heart pounding like a drum. Her side was bleeding, but she smiled faintly through the pain. You did it, she whispered to him. She'd be proud. Noah couldn't speak. He just nodded, holding her hand. Adam turned to the laptop. The upload had finished. All the files were gone, spread to safe havens all over the internet. All the proof of what Cavendish Biotech had done. The photos, the testimonies, the research logs, the names, everything. He clicked the final tab. A live stream had automatically been triggered. A backup failsafe his sister had built into the chip. It was broadcasting now, to the world. He watched as views ticked upward on the screen. Hundreds, thousands, millions. The voice that played wasn't his. It was hers, his sister. A recording. Her final message. My name is Eleanor Daniels, she said, voice calm and clear. If you're hearing this, I am no longer alive. I was part of an illegal program designed to manipulate the human brain. We were told it was medicine, but it was something else entirely. The recording played on. Around the world, people were tuning in. The truth was out. The world was watching. And the monsters had nowhere left to hide. Adam stepped back, heart thudding, his hands shaking. He turned to Julian, who lay unconscious against the wall. Then to the woman, who still bled, still smiled. And finally, to Noah. The boy looked at him, not as a stranger now, but as something closer, something older, a reflection of the sister they both lost. I'm sorry, Adam whispered. Noah held his gaze. His voice was quiet, wounded, but resolute. Then don't disappear this time. Adam's eyes filled with tears. He nodded. I won't. Outside, the rain finally stopped, but a storm had already begun. The bunker door was sealed again, reinforced from the inside. Julian lay unconscious, zip-tied and slumped against a steel pillar, his weapon dismantled and tossed into the deepest corner of the shelter. The faint hum of emergency generators whispered through the concrete walls, while the overhead lights flickered between red and white like a heartbeat trying to steady itself. Outside, dawn had begun to creep across the horizon, but inside time stood still. The woman sat against the wall, her hand pressed tightly against the wound in her side. Blood soaked through her jacket, but her breathing was stable. Noah stayed by her side, his small hands trembling, unsure whether to cry or to stay strong. So he did both in silence. Adam crouched near them, pulling a first aid kit from a locked cabinet. He worked carefully, gently. This wasn't a man used to tending wounds. This was a man used to hiding from them. But his fingers moved with care, with something that hadn't been present before. Remorse, responsibility, love. "You'll be okay," he murmured to her, wrapping her side in gauze. "I'll get you to a hospital as soon as we clear the area." She gave a half laugh, half groan. "You're not bad, for someone who used to think poor people only existed to be pitied." He managed a weak smile. "I didn't know how broken I'd become. Not until I heard that song." A heavy pause. Then Noah spoke, his voice low. "What happens now?" Adam turned to him. "Now," he said, "we rebuild." Noah tilted his head. "Ow!" By making noise. He pulled the laptop toward them again. Thousands of comments poured in across live broadcasts. Journalists, whistleblowers, and activists were already reposting the footage. Hashtags trended globally. Protests had erupted outside Cavendish facilities. Former employees were stepping forward. A wave had begun, and there would be no stopping it now. The woman's eyes fluttered shut, exhaustion finally overtaking her. Adam placed a blanket over her and looked to Noah. "You're not alone anymore," he said. Noah looked skeptical. "You said that before." Adam didn't flinch. "And I meant it now." Another long silence passed. Noah fidgeted with the fabric of his sleeve, avoiding eye contact. Then, almost like he couldn't stop himself, he asked, "Why did you leave her?" The question hit harder than any bullet. Adam leaned back, his breath stolen. "I was 17, he said after a moment. "She was 15. I got into trouble with some very dangerous people. I thought I was protecting her by running. I told myself if I disappeared, she'd be safe. She wasn't," Noah said quietly. "I know." He looked at the boy, this reflection of everything he'd abandoned. This fragile, fierce reminder that love wasn't something you could erase, no matter how far you ran. "She tried to find you," Noah whispered. "Even after everything. She kept your old photo in her room. She used to say, 'One day he'll remember who he is.'" Adam bowed his head, tears finally falling. "I'm remembering now." A knock echoed from outside the steel door. Adam jumped, reaching instinctively for the extinguisher handle again. But then, a voice came through. "Mr. Daniels." A man's voice, firm but not aggressive. "This is Agent Collins with the FBI. We need to speak with you immediately. We're here for your protection." Adam looked to the woman, who nodded faintly. "You triggered a storm," she said. "Time to face it." He stood and moved to the door panel. "Can we trust them?" Noah asked. "No," Adam said, looking over his shoulder. "But this time we don't need to." He typed in the unlock code. Click. The world was about to come knocking. The steel door hissed open. Beyond it stood 4 federal agents in black jackets, their badges already visible, their weapons holstered but present. Rain had returned, softer now, falling behind them in thin veils of mist. One man stepped forward, square-jawed, calm, early 50s. He looked at Adam with a mixture of curiosity and gravity. "Mr. Daniels?" he asked. Adam nodded. "I'm Special Agent Collins. You've started quite the firestorm." Adam didn't flinch. "Then I hope you brought a fire hose." Collins cracked the ghost of a smile. "We're here to extract you safely. You, the boy, and the woman. But I need to be clear. Cavendish has already begun damage control. There are powerful people trying to bury this again. You've just made yourself their #1 target." "I've been running from ghosts my whole life," Adam said. "I'm not running anymore." Behind him, Noah and the woman stepped into the doorway. The agent's eyes softened when they saw the boy. Noah looked exhausted, but something in his posture had shifted. He stood straighter, firmer, the way his mother once did. Collins nodded toward the agents. "Escort them to the vehicle. Secure perimeter." They moved as one, professional, silent, precise. As they walked through the trees toward the black SUV waiting with doors open and engine humming, Adam noticed how still the world had become. The birds weren't singing. The wind didn't move. Even the rain seemed to hesitate, like nature itself was holding its breath. Noah glanced up at him. "What happens if they try to erase everything again?" Adam crouched slightly to meet his gaze. "They won't," he said, "because now the world knows your name." Noah blinked. "But I don't want to be famous." "You won't be famous," Adam replied. You'll be remembered. That's more important. They reached the vehicle. The woman was already inside, being treated by a paramedic. Collins held the door open. Where to now? Adam asked. Collins looked at him. A safe location. And then a hearing. There's senators asking questions. Journalists knocking down doors. The people behind Cavendish won't stay hidden much longer. Adam helped Noah into the car, then paused. He looked back toward the woods, toward the shelter, toward the storm they'd just survived. I thought success meant erasing where I came from, he said quietly. But maybe it meant remembering it. He got in. The door shut. The SUV pulled away. And behind them, the dawn broke for real. Golden light spilled across the treetops, catching on the raindrops still clinging to the branches. The city below stirred. Sirens wailed in the distance. Not in alarm, but in momentum. Something had begun. Something irreversible. A week later, the headlines were everywhere. Biotech giant exposed in human experimentation scandal. Secret files leaked by unknown child survivors spark global outrage. Former CEO's brother leads fight for justice. Adam stood in a courthouse hallway, dressed in a modest suit. Not tailored, not designer. Real, honest. His face was tired, his beard a bit rougher than usual, but his eyes were clearer than they'd been in decades. Next to him, Noah sat quietly on a bench, a pair of clean jeans and a hoodie replacing the rags he'd once worn. He was sketching in a notebook. On the page, a moon broken in half, with music notes falling out of it. Adam watched him for a moment, then sat beside him. She'd be proud, he said. Noah nodded. I know. Then, softly, almost without realizing, Noah began to hum. The melody, that same, unforgettable song. But this time, he didn't hum it alone. Adam joined in. Two voices, different in tone, but identical in soul. The song carried down the hallway, quiet and strange, heard by lawyers, guards, and janitors. Most wouldn't understand it, but some would feel it. A lullaby born in fire, carried through silence, and now, finally, sung in peace. And maybe, just maybe, this wasn't just a story about injustice. It was about redemption, about second chances, about a child whose voice echoed louder than a billion-dollar empire. Because when everything seems lost, God has a way of using the smallest, the weakest, and the forgotten to remind the powerful that truth can never be silenced. If this story touched your heart, don't leave without subscribing to our channel. That's how we keep telling stories that matter. And we want to know, from where in the world are you watching us? Tell us in the comments below. Thank you for being here. God bless you. And never stop believing in miracles.